I just cleared the Salvation's Edge raid for the first time, and on my run I got lucky enough to get an Imminence Strand 900 RPM SMG with Demolitionist and Firefly. And the reason I find this interesting is that you do see Firefly on a range of weapons of different elements, sometimes even kinetics on Fatebringer, Hung Jury, but there aren't many weapons in the game that are Darkness aligned that also have Firefly. Cullum's Terminus from King's Fall is a stasis machine gun that can have Firefly, and technically Fatebringer and Praedith's Revenge from Vault of Glass have Osmosis and Firefly, so if you throw your grenade you could make it Darkness aligned if you have that super equipped, but no one's going to want to do that. But this by default, Strand SMG with Firefly. And that's important because Firefly, when you get the precision kill, it not only increases reload speed, but it causes the target to explode, dealing solar damage to nearby enemies. But now we have Final Shape and the Prismatic subclasses, mixing elements of light and dark can have some really interesting effects and interactions. So now we have a weapon that can deal strand damage and solar damage at the same time without needing any additional effects. And I like this because of this one specific fragment, the Facet of Awakening. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage, or super final blows, generates an elemental pickup of the matching damage type. So with this one weapon on its own without needing anything else, it's dealing light and darkness damage. Once from the initial bullets, which are strand, and once if you get a precision kill causing the explosion, which is solar. So I've got nothing else on here that would impact elemental generation. The only aspect I have equipped is Stylish Executioner. So let's get some multi-kills in this Lost Sector in the Pale Heart and see if we see both types of elemental pickups, Tangles because of strand and Fire Sprites because of solar. So there's a Fire Sprite. And there's a Tangle. The other prismatic fragment I wanted to highlight is Facet of Balance, where rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy and darkness damage for grenade energy. Obviously it's a strand SMG, so it will be granting grenade energy on normal multi-kills, and then Firefly multi-kills will also grant melee energy. Now my Imminence dropped with Demolitionist in the third column, so in these clips you are going to see larger jumps in grenade energy than if you were just using Facet of Balance on its own. But in this third column, you can also roll Pugilist. So if you're looking for an SMG like this with Firefly and Facet of Balance for an ability regen build, then you can kind of tailor it to suit whether you want more grenade energy or melee energy by putting Demolitionist or Pugilist on it. And the great thing about pairing one of these with Firefly is that the Firefly explosion kills will also proc Demolitionist or Pugilist. So when that occurs, you'll see much bigger jumps in ability energy generated. And it's not just the Prismatic subclass that can benefit from a Firefly Imminence's access to strand and solar damage types, because this first column where I've got Demolitionist can also roll Slice, where after using your class ability, the weapon then applies Sever, a strand debuff that lowers damage output of the combatant. And defeating targets afflicted by any strand debuff will unwind them and create a Tangle. And on the solar subclass, Ember of Tempering, solar weapon final blows can create a Fire Sprite, which we already know the Firefly effect can. Ember of Mercy, picking up a Fire Sprite grants restoration. And Ember of Empyrean, solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration and radiant, which will obviously be able to do with your solar abilities, but also the Firefly explosion. Now I'm going to test if this can generate additional orbs of power using siphon mods. If I just put one solar siphon mod on, I think we'll see some orbs being generated if I get multi-kills with the Firefly. Yep, there you go, generated one orb of power. So with a normal siphon mod of a single element, you only need 2 kills to make an orb. But there's kind of an invisible cooldown, so that if you get 3, maybe 4 kills in really quick succession, it won't give you the benefit of those additional multi-kills and give you 2 orbs, it'll still just give you 1. You see, that was about 4 or 5 enemies and only 1 orb. But what if we have one of each? That's the Solar Firefly orb, and that's the Strand one. And it's not just Imminence that can benefit from these combined darkness and light damage types on the same weapon. Because of the artifact this season, the Winning Hand artifact mod, which improves dealer's choice, basically giving every weapon that has that origin trait Firefly on precision final blows or rapidly defeating combatants. It means that weapons such as Bold Endings, the new heavy burst stasis hand cannon, can deal stasis damage as well as solar explosive damage to proc all the same fragments I just highlighted with Imminence. Except this time, Facet of Awakening will spawn stasis shards instead of tangles, which synergizes really well with collective action for a 20% damage buff on collecting an elemental pickup. There's the stasis shard for collective action. And there's the fire sprite. And I'll just note here, I think there's actually a bug with collective action, because when I picked up that stasis shard, the collective action buff didn't appear where it should, just above my super bar, even though this Bold Endings has collective action as a perk, and I just generated and picked up a stasis shard. So bear that in mind, Bungie might address that in the future. And on a final note, the light and darkness bars that you need to charge up to activate Transcendence can both be progressed just from using this one gun because of its access to darkness and light damage. Obviously, the light bar is going to charge slower because the Firefly explosions are going to proc less often than direct weapon damage, but it's still better than no progress at all. The main point of this video has been about how the dual damage types of a Firefly Imminence synergize really well with Prismatic, but there are some other really good rolls you can get on the Imminence SMG. Some good perks that you can roll in the fourth column are Strategist, Hatchling, Desperate Measures, Target Lock, or Kill Clip, but I also have a perk that is unique to the Salvation's Edge raid, Chaos Reshaped. This weapon gains bonus damage while in combat for an extended time, remaining in combat for even longer, rewards a larger damage bonus, and periodically heals the wielder. So it sounds a bit like Frenzy, but with 2 different stages, plus healing on the second stage. So base damage on a headshot against this ogre, 1522. Then after staying out of combat for a while to let the perk reset, I'm just going to plink away at body shots and see how long it takes to build up the stacks and what their damages will be. Okay, we have Chaos Reshaped, 1826. Let's see if I can get to ×2 without dying. Yep, that's ×2. 2055. After 12 seconds of being in combat, you gain a 20% damage buff. Another 12 seconds after that, for 24 seconds total, it goes up to 35%, and if you're out of combat for 7 seconds, then you lose the buff. I've just come back to see our old friend Savathun to test the healing effect at ×2 Chaos Reshaped. I'm only tier 1 recovery, so the passive healing shouldn't interfere too much and make it really easy to see on the health bar. I've already done a lot of these tests and looked at the clips, so I can tell you that once active, you get a little burst of healing every 7 seconds. The amount of healing is kind of comparable to picking up an Orb of Power with a recuperation leg mod on, and the frequency at which they come in is kind of similar to a low-level Banner of War. Okay, we're at ×2 now, so I'll take a bit more damage. And there we go, there was one pulse there, and then 7 seconds after that, there's another one. I would be dead now without those. So I really like the healing effect. I think this perk is very, very strong, both in damage and healing. For a boss damage phase, possibly not, because it takes 24 seconds for the full ×2 to be reached. And by that point, a lot of bosses, the phase is over. But for general play, it's probably one of the best perks in the game right now. Thanks for watching, and if you can think of any other unique interactions that can come from a strand weapon being able to deal solar damage with Firefly, let me know in the comments below.